you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. It is Freewheeling Friday, August 7th. So get your questions in the comment section for Laura to pass on to me, and I will answer them. Woo! First things first. What a dishonest media day, huh? Look at that terrible coverage of the jobs report. First of all, 4.5 for 4.8, whatever it was, the record from June was covered in a very dishonest manner. So I don't know why we're surprised today. I expected a little bit worse. We'll go over what the range was and everything, but it was a beat. So was the employment. So was wages. I mean, it was a beat almost clearly across the board. And you would think that would suffice. But no, it does not, because they are going to get more blatantly dishonest as we get closer, and also look, of course, for them to further push the shutdowns and the delays of openings, because single-digit unemployment after a crisis like this is a bad look for Biden, the Democrats, and the media. It just is. I mean, Donald Trump has been saying we had the greatest economy, and he always says that. I'll give him the greatest labor market, but I'm not going to give him the greatest economy because, well, there's just some indicators we can't do that for. But definitely the greatest labor market, the tightest, the strongest labor market that in our modern lifetimes, at least, if not ever, I mean, according to records of serious indicators. And I'll give him that. And what that shows is he can, it strengthens his argument that he is the one who could do it again. So let's take a look at, let's take a look at this jobs report, okay? And also, just a preview of the show here. Bad day for Biden, folks. Bad day for Joe Biden. Terrible day. And I was debating whether or not I should put like an S in parentheses, because it's been a bad few days for Joe Biden. It's not good. We had the news about the Trump organization that really got swamped with like other on social media. It got swamped with, well, what happened to the Clinton Foundation? These very same people just turned their backs on more egregious violations of the law, which we shared and covered, and it wasn't us. PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four accounting firms, corporate accounting firms. I'm not, I'm not authority on corporate accounting. PricewaterhouseCoopers said they broke the law, and that Schneiderman did nothing. The district attorney did nothing. The state and the county did nothing. And now we see these political prosecutions, and that's just not going to hinder anything politically. And then Biden stuffs his foot in his mouth again with racial slurs. And we're going to go over this because the truth is Biden has a minority voter problem. Biden is not ahead because he's outperforming Hillary Clinton with minority voters or performing along the lines of Barack Obama on minority voters. He's not. He's underperforming them both at this moment. And the only reason why he's doing a little bit is doing better is because he is doing better among white voters. And we'll talk about why that is a danger for Democrats. He needs to shore up those minority votes, and he's not going to do it making the kind of comments that he's made. So let's get through this first segment, though, because I got some clips, and I'm like dying to get into this Biden. I'm just dying to do it. All right. U.S. economy adds 1.8 million jobs in July. Unemployment falls to 10.2%. If you go to Twitter right now and you look at the trending thing on Twitter, you have CNBC, NBC, CNN all lying about the headline. All right. Just flatly lying about the headline. And Twitter is going with the trend that's verbatim. This is what it says. U.S. economy adds 1.8 million jobs in July as unemployment falls slightly. Okay, folks. July jobs report beats expectations. It was a beat. Wages rose by 4.8% in July. That follows a 4.9% gain in June. And wages are a little bit difficult. The trend, and the Labor Department said this, they're absolutely right. I'll get into that in a second. But there's been, it obscures the data when you have all of these lower paying jobs being pushed out by the shutdown, and then they race back in. That actually collapsed wages for a month in the month of May, and then the rest of the jobs come racing back in. It obscures the trend at least, but we'll look at it because it's a V. Clearly, it's a V. And that the underlying number for the 12-month gain, the seasonally adjusted annual rate, that is now above pre-pandemic levels. 3% was the critical threshold for wage growth. All right. We'll talk more about this in a little bit. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported the U.S. economy added 1.8 million jobs in July, and the unemployment rate fell to 10.2%, beating the forecast, plural. The forecast for total non-farm payrolls range from a low of 200,000 to a high of 2.4 million. The consensus was 1.675 million. The forecast for the unemployment rate ranged from a low of 9.8 to a high of 11.5. The consensus was 10.5. Okay. Here we have, let's just take a look real quick. Okay. This is the entire series data for the civilian unemployment rate. All right. And then I think it's starting in 2000 or 1999, we start to get actual demographic data for this indicator. All right. Check out the 1 year. Obviously, we all know under Donald Trump, every single demographic category hit a record low for this series. All right. But then we did see we saw a giant, rise during the pandemic. No shocker there. What I just want to say about the unemployment rate, and you're going to see this with civilian labor force participation, it's a little bit not as strong as this, but still, everybody's going down together. There's no one group, as we have seen with this indicator in the trend before. Like Asians always have a lower unemployment rate and a higher labor force participation rate. If you actually forget about the levels for a second and just look at the rates of declines and the rates of increases for both of those indicators, everybody's moving pretty much uniformly in the same direction at the same pace, then that's a good thing. Why? Because, let's face it, demographics have different sectors that they work in. And it doesn't look like the economy's all bouncing back in one big shot. At least not every sector. I mean, there are some sectors that are bouncing back faster than others. And this is showing a little bit more flat, a little bit more uniform recovery. And I like to see that kind of thing. And we don't leave anybody behind, right? Trump, he won 2016 because he was talking about the forgotten man and woman. So I don't want to see anybody get left behind. All right, I'm going to pop Laura in real quick, but I'm going to boot her out real fast. All right, just so when she wants to jump into with her little questions, I can unmute her mic. All right. The labor force participation rate was virtually unchanged at 61.5 following increases in May and June. Total employment, as measured by the household survey, rose by 1.4 million in July to 143.5 million. That's nice. The less cited, but equally important, employment population ratio rose 0.5 percentage points to 55.1, but of course remains lower than in February at 61.1. It was a big deal that the civilian labor force participation rate went above 63% under Donald Trump. It was a big deal that the employment population ratio went above 60% under Donald Trump. Why? Because we always hear that these unemployment trends, especially when Trump touts the unemployment rate for Black and African American workers, we always hear the Obama folks jump in and say that started under Obama. That is not true for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is, look at the civilian. Let's go back to the entire, okay? Here is, here is the election of Barack Obama, all right? And then he gets and takes, by the time it was the spring of Obama's administration, we were already over the worst of the Great Recession. I hate to tell you folks, but the American Investment and Recovery Act was passed after the worst of the Great Recession was over, and we were already on our way back. The shovel-ready jobs that he pushed for, there was no point to have them. We see you can clearly see unemployment was declining under Barack Obama. However, it was not because of the same reasons that it was declining under Donald Trump. When you have rising participation rates and rising employment population ratios in conjunction with falling unemployment rates, you have a tight labor market. And that will be reinforced by initial jobless claims. The threshold for a tight labor market is below 300,000. Under Donald Trump, they were routinely around 200,000, hitting multi-decade lows on the reg. And the civilian labor force participation rates for Black and African American, for Latino Hispanic, for Asian and others were constantly rising while the unemployment rate was falling. Under Barack Obama, we saw the labor participation rates fall, which you can clearly see right here. Here's the election of Barack Obama. Labor force participation falls, and continues to fall until Donald Trump is elected and begins to turn it around. That's just a fact. So under Barack Obama, falling unemployment rates for whites, for Blacks, for Asians, for Hispanics, that was a methodological gimmick. It is a flaw in the Bureau of Labor Statistics household survey methodology. It is a trick. Those were people giving up on the American dream, and they were no longer considered in the household survey. So unemployment fell. When unemployment falls, but you see what is going on here. The civilian labor force participation rates are increasing. You have a real labor market. You have real falling unemployment. You have a real tightening of the labor market, real increase in demand for labor, which does what, folks? And I'm going to skip over. I'll come back to some of this stuff, which does what? It pushes wages higher. And actually, this chart, for some reason, did not update. If you go and look, you know what? I want to show people that. So I'm going to pop this thing up because this really does matter quite a bit. And I want to show you, I'm going to overlay it right over my ugly little mug here. All right. But I want to show you what wages are doing here, what they did do. There was no 3% wage growth after the Great Recession until the Trump administration. None. It did not happen. It was the third quarter of 2008 was the last time we saw 3% wage growth. It wasn't until the third quarter of 2018, because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that we started to see it. Critics said it was a temporary bump from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and it would go away. It did not. And in fact, we tracked it on PPD, and every month the employment survey came out, the employment situation survey came out. Every single month, we would say for the 9th consecutive month, at or above 3%, for the 10th consecutive month, for the 11th, for the 12th, for the 13th, on and on and on and on. And it was only during this pandemic that it came down below. We had one revision in December of 2019. It was initially reported at 2.9. And then the next month in July, it was revised up to 3 anyway. So we had real wage growth on a 12-month annual basis of 3% or greater for almost 2 years under Donald Trump. Almost 2 full years. It wasn't until this pandemic when it fell. And it fell, like I said, because exits of lower paid workers will shoot the average hourly earnings number up. Re-entrance of those workers will plummet it. And that is what we saw in the month of May. As you can clearly see that giant V slapping you in the face. Now we have what is essentially, and you'd actually see it higher. Now we have what is, no, this is the right chart. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm referring to the one that's online right now. Things are cached. Like we use a lot of heavy aggressive caching because of heavy traffic. So sometimes things take a little bit to update. The cache will have to be cleared or something and we'll update. All right. But this is what the real average hourly earnings on the 12-month basis is. Why did it jump under Donald Trump? Because wages were being pushed, upward pressure on wages, because it was a real labor market. The demand for labor was real. Under Barack Obama, it was fake. It was a methodological gimmick. It was fake. It was a part-time economy, folks. Part-time economy. Donald Trump saw goods producing sectors coming back, manufacturing, construction. Those are higher paying jobs. Workers, their wages were outpacing supervisory. In other words, the boss. Gains in their wages were outpacing their bosses as a percentage. That was a truly tight labor market. All right. So I just wanted to show that to you because every damn month we got to deal with somebody seeing it, somebody. Well, Trump really always touts this, but he shouldn't get the credit for it. It was a gimmick under Barack Obama. He does get the credit for it. He does. End of story. Like him or not, eat it. He gets it. Deal. I don't know what to tell you. All right. In July, construction employment changed little, about 20,000, following job gains of 619,000 in May and June combined. Normal month, folks, 20,000 in construction is solid. All right. But construction recovered roughly half of its pre-pandemic level in May alone. So gains now are starting to slow up, which is consistent with what we're seeing with the pushback on the reopening. It's consistent. It makes sense. Unemployment in the industry still remains 440,000 below its February level. No duh. Right? No crap. Manufacturing employment increased 26,000 in July. Again, another solid number. And on any given month, we'd say, nice, 26,000 manufacturing jobs. But because we lost so many, we're still below 740. We're 740,000 below the February level. It sucks. But it's still a solid recovery. In May, when construction recovered roughly half of its losses from the shutdown, manufacturing got about 20%. It recovered about 20% of its pre-pandemic level. It's added 623,000 jobs over the last 3 months. It's pretty damn good. All right. In July, we talked about wages. Just to tell you, average hourly earnings for all employees of private non-farm payrolls rose by 7 cents to $29.39. That's a solid gain. Average hourly earnings for private sector production and non-supervisory employees fell by 11 cents to 24.63. And the reason why the Bureau of Labor Statistics is trying to tell us this is because the influx, the great fluctuation in employment data that's coming back and forth, what industry was lost during the pandemic, what's coming back, it's really obscuring the trend. It's hard to say, okay, 1 month it fell, what's the overall trend? It's being obscured right now. So it really is going to take a couple of months to iron out. All right. But on the 12-month basis, a 4.8% gain in July after rising 4.9 in June, solid. And by the way, June was, I think, initially reported at 5%, so it's down 0.1 of a percentage point. And right there, it says it right there. However, the large changes and pandemic response impact have complicated trends in wage growth, which has been consistently over the critical 3% threshold for nearly 2 years. Total non-farm payroll for May, solid month, was revised up by 26,000. So about 2.7 and a quarter. And June was revised down. That was the strongest month ever on record. But still, it is far beyond the next one behind it, which is May, by the way. Before that, you got to go back to the 80s with Ronald Reagan, where he had back-to-back months of about 700,000 to, closer. Everybody, people like to say a million, back-to-back to 2 months there. This blew that away. Though the latter is still the largest game ever on record by far, is the point. Combined, the number of jobs created for the last 2 months was 17,000 jobs higher than previously reported. All right, so all in all, a solid month for job creation, okay? And yet, I know, believe me, I understand, I know these idiots. I mean, CNN's headline should really read, "The U.S. economy creates more jobs than expected despite us and our Democrat friends trying to sabotage it." That is what it should say, because that's what they're doing. All right. It's just, and then what was the other one? NBC, I think. NBC said, U.S. economy adds 1.8 more than expected, but the labor market slows down or something like that. I mean, it's provide context. You got to do it. It's understandable to provide context. Yes, job creation was booming, and now it's still booming by historical standards. It's just that we need to recover what we lost, and it's going at a slower pace. Well, whose fault is that? That is their fault. That should actually be in their reporting. We are pushing the pandemic shutdown response. We are killing the economy. It is our fault. It is our friends in the Democratic Party's fault. And the couple of friends we have in the Republican Party, like Larry Hogan, who, by the way, made a good decision with schools. You got to give credit where credit's due. I am not a fan of Larry Hogan. I frankly think he's a blue state coward, like trying to straddle a fence. I don't know where his core is. I like politicians personally. Rich's opinion time. I like politicians more when I know where they are. And it may not be that I necessarily even agree with them, but I could at least respect them because I know where they're coming from. You know what I mean? I can at least respect them because I know where they're coming from. And I know they have a core, an essential belief system, even if I don't particularly agree with it. I cannot stand fence straddlers like Joe Manchin or Larry Hogan. I cannot stand them. They're weasels. They have no core. They do whatever the wind is telling them to, whichever they go whichever direction the wind is blowing. Charlie Crist, right? That's another great example since we're Florida. These people, like the lowest of low of humanity. You have to believe in something. You have to make decisions based on principles and evidence. These are people who make decisions based on whichever the way the wind is blowing, and I have no respect for people like them. Zero. They're the slimiest little cowards you'll ever meet in your life. Speaking of which, Marco Rubio. As those of you who know me and my history with Rubio, I cannot stand the guy. I think he is one of the slimiest people in politics. I will tell you this. Let's rewind the clock. Let's tell this story, Laura. Let's tell this story. Back in the 2009-2010 timeframe, let's rewind time. Marco Rubio is Speaker of the Florida House. Okay. And he wants to run as the conservative alternative to Charlie Crist for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. The TARP bailouts happen. Obama happens, right? I mean, and everything that came with it happens. And the Tea Party arises out of nowhere. I know, Sharon, I know. And look, I know. I don't like to tell people how I personally vote, but Sharon, I hear you. I know it. And it's like, not biting your tongue, chewing the side of your cheek off. All right. Like until you don't even have a face anymore. And this is a little, I guess, inside thing between Sharon and I or others who may be seeing what she wrote. I know, I understand. It blows. All right. But anyway, I start to run. I want to see, is this thing with the Tea Party serious? So I start going around to events. The media starts portraying them the way they're portraying them. And just like I did later, years and years later with Trump and his movement, I wanted to see, is this true? I mean, is really white people who are racist and hate that we have a black president? I mean, all sorts of crap. You remember the narrative, all right? So I start to go to these events, and I clearly see that that is not the case. In fact, the Gainesville chapter of the Tea Party was run by a Hispanic man who was a Democrat, right? And so I was like, this does not fit the media narrative at all. Okay, so the candidates are going around, and back then it was not just a Republican or conservative thing. They would have these questionnaires that they would want to hand out, all right, to their, to respective candidates and answer the questions based on their positions. Like it or not, Charlie Crist at least filled out the questionnaire, okay? And it wasn't like those weren't the answers that a lot of these people were looking for, whether they were Republican, Democrat. I would say that they were absolutely fiscally conservative, and they didn't want to hear about big spending, pushing stuff like that, right? So at least Charlie Cristo filled out the survey. Marco Rubio, wanting to be the conservative alternative, did not fill out the survey. So I'm sitting with one of his communications people at an event, talking to her, and I'm, I don't want to blow her up here, but she was one of Marco's early people, and told me exactly how Marco felt about the Tea Party and whether or not he had to fill out their survey or come to their events and answer the questions like Charlie Crist did. All right. And basically, a month later, he's trailing Charlie Crist significantly. So she comes back, and she wanted to ask about what was going on, like maybe trying to solicit free advice for Marco, right? And basically my answer was, this will be a base activist election. Perhaps you should pay attention to them, or get creamed by the less conservative candidate in the race. Like, you will go on, you will achieve the unbelievable, which is to get creamed by a non-conservative candidate in an election that was about fiscal conservatism. Like, unbelievable feat that you're about to accomplish. So they reverse themselves in their positions, and they decide to really pay attention to these groups. And then he answered those questions better. They took a shine to Marco, and he wiped out a double-digit deficit. Obviously, we know the rest of the story. Almost all of my interactions have been like that, where he will do whatever the hell he has to do, right? Veteran issues. I am such a strong supporter of veterans. He does nothing until threatened to be exposed for it. And then all of a sudden he's the champion of veterans again. He is. Laura's over there drinking. Hold on one second, folks. Hold on. Hold on one second. You remember that? Don't ever, if you are a prospective political leader and you're a rising star, don't ever agree to deliver the rebuttal to the State of the Union. It's a career killer. Don't feel bad. It's a career killer. It happens to everybody, but Marco's was particularly disgusting. I could go on and on with Marco stories, right? How many Marco stories? Hold on. I got to bring Laura in here. You got your mic? Hold on. Oh, I can't unmute you. You did it again. All right. I'll do it. She did nothing. She said, all right, yourself. How many Marco stories do we have? I mean,
I can't count on my fingers or toes.
You can't. All right. So I just wanted somebody else to verify that. All right. Because being in Florida, as long as we had been, that's just the way it is. And he doesn't I don't know, folks. It's just what he is. It's what he is. And frankly, like I just said, I don't really care if you have an R next to your name or a D next to your name. I cannot stand people like that, politicians like that. And today, this is the kind of thing he'll do. This is textbook Markup. You will talk to Marco Rubio, or people will talk to Marco Rubio about election fraud in Florida forever. And he will mock it or cast it aside as conspiracy theorists, right? Kind of thing. It's kind of ridiculous. We've won plenty of elections in Florida. I don't know what you're talking about. Blah, 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 blah. Then 2018 comes around when his buddies are in trouble. All right. Because of some schemes and scams they're trying to pull in Broward County. It didn't matter. All of the things that happened and were documented in 2016. That didn't matter because they weren't targeted at him. They were targeted at Donald Trump. So he didn't give a damn about, all the ballots Brenda Snipes was opening without Republicans being present or other officials being present to oversee the ballot openings, right? He didn't care about any of that because they weren't going to target him. Their target was Donald Trump, right? So then he didn't give a damn about that. In 2018, he loses an agricultural commissioner because it's Big Sugar. And Marco is backed by Big Sugar, man. You want to know where Marco takes his marching orders from? Big Sugar, car dealerships, the big guys in Miami, right? Am I BSing them? I'm not BSing them. This is who Marco takes his orders from. So Big Sugar loses their candidate for agricultural commissioner. He's up by a couple thousand votes heading into election night in 2018. You know what happened during the nighttime, all right, and everything else. They skim him off. They're able to peel him off, and then they set their sight. Mark Elias comes in, and they want to set their sights on Rick Scott too. But because of the principled fighters like Matt Gaetz, right? Who, when we said they're trying to steal an election from you, hey, no skin off our back. You do what you want to do, but they're trying to steal an election. And they took it seriously, went and looked for themselves. Because of people like him, Rick Scott did not get lifted. But Big Sugar lost their agricultural commissioner guy, so all of a sudden Marco Rubio gives a damn. So the Republicans win the House, they got the Senate, they got the presidency, and what do? Between the time Donald Trump almost was robbed and Big Sugar would go on to lose their agricultural commissioner in the state of Florida? Nothing. They do not, actually less than nothing. What was Marco Rubio doing between 2016 and 2018 when he had the power to do something about it? Tweeting today, telling us to expect that November is going to be a disaster. An electoral, it's going to be a disaster with election fraud. How dare he tell his constituents, you better just expect it's going to be a nightmare. How dare he? You should have been doing something about it, but you didn't. What was Marco doing? Kissing Richard Burr's, right? That's what he was doing. And peddling, enabling a witch hunt that was that was predicated on a conspiracy theory. That's what Marco Rubio was doing for 2 years.
But why?
What is there a question?
No, I was just saying the reason why was because his feelings were hurt when he got spanked by Donald Trump in his own state.
That's another thing. We believing these GOP establishment pollsters who were blowing smoke. That's a whole other story. I got another story for you. I told you just drop out. Before you commit career suicide, you drop out and you support the nominee or the chosen person, right? As long as, look, Trump has been a conservative. He is governing more conservative than you could have ever expected from any of those other jokers. Let's just be real. And I like Scott Walker. I refuse to call him a joker. Scott Walker is a good man, so I take that back if that's like putting, yeah. He is a good man, and I mean a decent man. He is there are not many Scott Walkers in this business. He is a good man. Whether you agree with him or not, I'm telling you as a person, he is a good person. But anyway, there was no ideological reason to oppose Donald Trump once it looked like. Marco Rubio's pollsters, very Republican establishment people, were telling him that he was making a surge. He was going to come back. It was going to be a race in Florida during the primary. Folks, it was never close. Never. Donald Trump was going to kill him down here. And he did. It was never close. It was like 10 to 20 points the entire time, right? 10 to 20 points. It really was. Depending on something Trump may have said during the week, right? Because that would happen. Like, some people down here did still like John McCain. So, some people didn't like that. But, it is what it is. But that's another Marco story. I mean, I told you, I got Marco stories galore, all right? And he really didn't believe it. He was convinced, no, you're surging. Even though his gut was telling him that he was going to get killed. He didn't listen to it. And by the way, in order to get the Southeastern get out the vote, in order to get Rubio's Cuban operation, sometimes other candidates have to make a sacrifice and take the same kind of pollster who almost leads them to defeat. And I like him, but he did. I mean, this is the way the game works, right? So anyway, I got a million of Marco stories, but it's a perfect example of what we see today. So Marco has the nerve to tell you to just suck it up and expect an election disaster. Now he wants to whine about it because his own interest, right? I just, excuse me, I'm just tired. I'm sick and tired. I'm over whiny, spineless Republicans who are like 4, 6, 8 years late to the party. And then they come out of nowhere and moan like little girls. No offense, ladies. I mean, like, they're going to steal this election. Where were you? Where were you, Marco? You're a United States senator from a state that has been plagued by voter fraud problems for decades. Where were you? Sipping on big sugar. That's where you were. Sipping on it. Anyway. I saw that comment. That's funny stuff. They're good. They're fun. What's Freewheeling Friday? All right. Speaking of the minority vote, which we were talking about, the Cuban vote. All right. Joe Biden is just killing himself here. Like I said, Joe Biden is not ahead like he's ahead, even in media polls, because Joe Biden is doing so well with the minority vote. It's true that black voters saved his nomination because South Carolina was the full stop kind of thing before they needed him to win South Carolina. So the effort to paint Bernie Sanders as unelectable would stick. The polls didn't come out. They had polls they wanted to push out and really make a heyday with, right? So they needed James Clyburn to deliver South Carolina for Joe Biden because they needed another 2 weeks for their friends in the media and for these like push polls to show Joe Biden is the only electable candidate, to convince voters before Super Tuesday that Bernie Sanders cannot win. Because if I've said this a million times, don't take my word for it. Go look at the exit and entrance polls or the voter analysis, whatever you want to look at when it comes to this primary cycle. Everywhere, from California to Iowa, voters believed that the party should move in the direction Bernie Sanders wanted it to move. They believed Joe Biden was the thing of the past. That is why in those early, especially white states, the only real second choice was Pete Buttigieg because he was younger and they wanted somebody to move it more forward. Yes, he was kind of being portrayed as moderate, but he wasn't. His positions were not. So he'd be portrayed by the media as moderate and then go tell people at like a pre-caucus like campaign event that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And Joe Biden needed that critical 2 weeks between South Carolina and Super Tuesday to have his friends and allies, basically an unprecedented effort by a party establishment and their corporate media allies to smear a candidate and to paint them as unelectable. I can just tell you from my own polling, I don't know everything. I didn't poll the Democratic primary a lot. I could just tell you from my own polling, the only state where we saw Bernie unelectable was Florida. But he could have won without Florida. He could have won the Electoral College. Like the state of Minnesota was off the map with Bernie Sanders because populism is why Donald Trump came so close to defeating Hillary Clinton. The worst thing that Democrats can do is nominate a corporatist Democrat, an establishment corporatist for a state like Minnesota. Why? Because deep, 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 deep roots of populism. The Democratic Party in Minnesota does not even call themselves the Democratic Party. If somebody can tell me what they call the Democratic Party in Minnesota, I'll give you a fake $100. But it is because of their history as a workers' party, a pro-workers' party, progressive party, right? Progressive workers' rights, I would say, right? Donald Trump was the exact kind of candidate that I was talking about that could come in and win Minnesota. And in fact, do we have the chart for Minnesota? We don't. In fact, I have this chart is what I was asking about. It was something we put together when we released the poll results for Minnesota in 2016, saying that it was close. It was, in fact, a battleground state, that it was a 2-point race. And we got mocked and viciously attacked for it. But the point of the chart was demographic changes over time. And if that Republicans would have ran somebody like Donald Trump before, even 4 years before, they could have flipped the state of Minnesota because of demographic changes. And the only reason why it was a 2-point race for Hillary Clinton is because of this. It used to be a very white, very populous working state. And then over time, it became much, 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 much more diverse, even though it still is a white state. And that saved Hillary Clinton, that in the early vote. Really. I mean, she would have lost it. All right. But the worst thing you could do as a Democrat in modern times is nominate somebody like Joe Biden to run in Minnesota. Bernie Sanders took Minnesota right off, because there were those left-wing populists, or want to lean left-wing populists. And actually, most of them are independents that voted for Donald Trump, or would consider voting for Donald Trump if they didn't in 2016 because of their populist pro-worker views. Well, with Bernie Sanders in the mix, they're gone. And in fact, one terrifying statistic on election night, on the primary day this year, was how many Bernie voters said they will not vote for Joe Biden. They will vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. The overlap there was so stark. It was actually bigger than Michigan. He just never made it. He, meaning Donald Trump, never made a play for Minnesota in 2016. He went there once. And if everybody read the book, How Trump Won, then I guess you know this story. I gave Larry, our early week guest, the poll, and I guess he gave it to Bannon, and they were like, "Oh, let's go to Minnesota once," but they should have went to Minnesota over and over and over and over, like they did with Michigan, and they would have carried Minnesota. All right. Let's. It's 11:40. Questions, she says. All right, I'm going to mute myself. Give Laura the floor. Let's answer some questions before we take. Oh, real quick, folks. Oh my God, we're really close to the subscriber thing, so we can start doing this polling effort. Keep subscribing on YouTube if you didn't already, and share it with your friends and family that you may think will like the show. Of course, like the page on Facebook as well, and subscribe to People's Pundit Daily. But one goal at a time, folks. One goal at a time. All right, questions. I'm shutting up, Laura.
Do you want to start with questions from before or the ones right now?
Relevant.
Okay. So one person, Jar2241, said, how can Trump win Somali people in Minnesota over? Because
okay. She did say because of something after, but I opened my mouth. All right. I opened my mouth and I interrupted it. I mean, he really can't win over the Somali people. He's got to, I'm sure there will be some break-off. It's the way statistics works. He's got to win the Twin Cities, the whites in the Twin City suburbs. And not just only the whites, just that they're disproportionately, right? So in 2016, he did great everywhere else in the state. He lost the state. I mean, I don't know that he could have squeezed any more blood out of that stone in the rest of the state. I really don't. I mean, he really juiced turnout in the rest of that state and hit the marks that we had for him with carrying the state, which is why, if those of you are longtime followers, you may notice that Minnesota did go red on projections for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes in 2016, because the way the vote, though, came in the Twin City suburbs, right? So in our polling, he was like 45, 46, right? In the exit polls, he wound up getting 47. He really needed to do a little bit better. And then what happened was one chunk came in when it was reported, and it bumped him to like 53. And once it went to 53, that's just the way it is. Like, it's the vote share over there is big. So once it went to 53, it moved it. Boom. It's leaning Trump. So, but there was not it was not representative of the entire suburbs. So it came back down. Eventually, he settled around 47%. Trump's key to success in Minnesota is to get about if he really wants to make sure he carries it, 5-6 point increase in the suburbs, in the Twin City suburbs. I mean, specifically, because then that's going to translate And people always say, well, what about the rest of it? Typically, that's going to, if he was to do better in the Twin City suburbs, you could expect that other areas where he could have maybe not in the rural areas, he juiced that. There's nothing more he really could do there. He needs to hold that, of course, too. But it would have translated to other areas with similar demographics, that would have done maybe a couple of points better. But really, it was those Twin City suburbs. If he would have kept his vote share around 52 to 54%, then he would have carried it. But he didn't. And we are here where we are. All right, I'm going to answer a question I saw right now about Quinnipiac. I don't like criticizing pollsters by name, polling firms by name. I don't like doing that. But I will say this about Quinnipiac. I make a half exception for it. Why? Because the media pretends like it's a gold standard. It is not. Quinnipiac got every single battleground state wrong in 2016, and they weren't even close. They didn't get anything right again in 2018 and made some egregiously bad calls. The only one state that was of consequence was people that talk about how close Texas could be with Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke. They called the winner correctly, although they were wrong about the margin and the size. So even when they call the winner right for the Republican, they don't have a good grasp on the Republican vote. So they actually overestimated Cruz, all right, in Texas. It just goes to show you they're clueless. Their methodology is grossly out of date. And actually, the reason why I make a bit of an exception for Quinnipiac is because I have an inkling of suspicion that it's actually something worse, right? So no polling director from a supposedly nonpartisan university polling outfit has any business being wined and dined on Capitol Hill by any political party to hawk the results of their supposedly nonpartisan polls. And I get really suspicious when those polls tend to skew one way when one party gives you more attention, and then tend to skew the other way when they stop giving you attention. They haven't called an election correctly in 3 election cycles. They haven't come to release the poll they released in Florida yesterday. Should have received widespread condemnation from people in this industry. And this is why nobody trusts us. We should be ashamed of ourselves for not speaking out about it. In 2016, I nicely asked some people, and some publicly, like Quinnipiac, if you would just stop, do me a favor and just stop polling my state. It's a difficult state. You don't know what you're doing. You're making a fool of yourself. Just do me a favor and stop. Maybe poll privately for a little bit. This would be the responsible. If you cared about your reputation and you cared about the damage that you're doing to a disservice to the public that you're doing, then you would poll privately to make sure that you retool your methodology and you're going to make sure that you're accurate in an election that maybe you people don't know you're calling. So what? You're not part of the media narrative. So what? You're not the talk of the town. You care more about your reputation, right? Isn't that what this is all about? You care more about serving the public, right? Isn't that what this is all about? But they didn't take my advice. Neither did others. And Quinnipiac polled and continued to poll. I'm not going to tell them not to poll anything. I won't mind to do that. But in my state, since I'm the only one who keeps getting it right, maybe you should stop polling my state. You're kind of offending me with how bad you are, actually. So they don't. Nelson +7, Gillum +7 after a series of doozies that were even worse. And then after 2018, I just said, you know what? This outfit is doing this intentionally. And the gurus that the media thinks are so smart either are the dumbest gurus around, or their continued portrayal of the Quinnipiac as a gold standard poll is an intentional deception. Which one is it? Are you a stupid guru? Or are you intentionally lying to people? And just as I know, this is why I'm always so hesitant on praising any of these guys. No sooner or no later than, not 24 hours later after praising Nate Cohen, he tweets that freaking poll, which everybody should have condemned. That is a laughable joke. You should be ashamed of yourself releasing something like that. So egregiously so unbelievable, it's not even in the realm of reality. With the exception of agricultural commissioner, which was 0.1%, Democrats haven't won a statewide race in the state of Florida in how long? Somebody tell me. But Joe Biden's going to carry it by 15 points? The nerve of you to do something like that, since you haven't called a freaking race correctly in that state or anywhere else that I can find in 3 election cycles. So while my strict policy of not condemning pollsters by name, you have some freaking nerve over there, Quinnipiac. And in 2014, when Paul Ryan and the crew were opening their doors up to luncheons and, oh, tell me your latest, giving them nice little welcome, rolling out the red carpet for them on Capitol Hill with their pro-Republican polls. Once that stops, all of a sudden, it reverses to pro-Democrat bias? No. Fool the fake gurus with that nonsense. You're not fooling us. How dare you? Shame on you. Shame on you. All right. Anyway, moving on. Let's, you know what? It's 11:51. Let's get a few more questions in before we take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll laugh at some clips of Joe Biden. Sound good? All right. All right. So I'm going to mute myself. Give Laura the...
All right. Questions. Let's see. Ashwin, she said, good morning, Rich. Well, yeah, it's still morning. The job numbers look really good. I believe you have been saying that if Trump attains a certain economic number in third quarter, he will win re-election. Do you see the trend towards that?
So we're right on the... Oops. So we're right on the line, Ashwin. All right. I just keep telling Laura, don't mute your mic. I'll do it. Don't mute your mic. And I just forgot. But I'll get it right because I'm getting used to her doing it. So we're right on the line. So the deal is, we're not really going to get solid GDP numbers to say, okay, second estimate, it's clear the economy is bouncing back. It's strong. Trump has led us back. He has done it again. We're not going to get that. So it has to be so strong that people really feel it. They feel it. They don't need the Bureau of Economic Analysis to tell them. This is why we're very much on that line. We are. And once the coronavirus fades as an issue, which it will, if, I imagine it will in the last stretch, the 4-week stretch of this campaign, people will start. And that's why when Barnes and I were talking about really when was the best time to start this polling, it would really be September, because we want to see where it was before that, right? We're really on that line. And these numbers are looking good. And there's only so much time that they can hold this back. The reason why it's not even bigger, Ashwin, is because of the renewed focus on the Sun Belt, the skewing of data, using the infections of younger, less at risk people as a way to continue to push the fear porn and to continue to shut down the economy or to pause the reopening of the economies that hurt the labor market. There's just no doubt. So we probably would have saw 3.5, 4 million again if it wasn't for that renewed push. I have no doubt. And potentially, since I continue to be defied by numbers under Trump, he continues to defy expectations. I wouldn't even have been shocked if it was 5 million or 6 million. I really would not have been. So we're right on that line right now. And that's why you're seeing them. Go and look at the headline in NBC right now. Go look at the headline at CNN. They even downplayed the record 4.8 million job report in June. They even downplayed that. They did their level best to downplay it, even though it was more than 5 times stronger than the prior record. So we're right on that line. If it continues, coronavirus fades as an issue and it continues to keep recovering. And the economy, it's clear that Trump, and he will know because he'll retake his lead on the economy. He's got about a 5-point lead right now. It was a double-digit big lead. If he retakes that big double-digit lead on the economy, then he is going to win. Barring, of course, what we talked about all week last week. They know this, Ashwin, which is why they're fudging these headlines. They know this, which is why they push for a shutdown to kill the economy. It was his Achilles heel. They know this, which is why they're trying to stop the reopening of the economy. If it's about the economy, he's going to win. And they know this because they wouldn't push for all of these ballot not potential. It will be fraud. We know it already from the little experiments they've run that they wouldn't do this if they didn't feel they needed it. And if you talk to Democrats privately, they will tell you they absolutely believe Donald Trump is going to outperform his polls again. Many of them feel that they will need 2 weeks of ballots to overtake. I spoke to, well, I don't want to blow her up, but she's running for re-election, and Congresswoman. She believes, and she told many of her colleagues believe, that Donald Trump is going to be leading on election night. They absolutely, I'm talking about like in Pennsylvania and other states. She believes that. And that's why we need to count votes for another week or two. All right. So there you have it. All right. Let me go to should we do a quick break here? Let's get one more question before I take a break. I'm feeling juicy today.
Well, it is Freewheeling Friday. So let's get more questions. Jack M. Okay, better. The issue is how can Trump get out from behind the COVID-19 elephant in the room? He's fine when he can be on the offense, but not so good on defense.
Yeah, so I would actually, if I was Trump, go back to holding rallies. I would do it in a way where they couldn't criticize me. That rally that they did into should have been outdoors. And then, look, the same way we go, where did we go the other day? Which is checking temperatures. It's becoming a normal way of life. So, which is sad, it shouldn't, but during the pandemic, it is what it is. Hold the rallies outdoors, do a telecom rally if you got to, but have people, there has to be some kind of a meeting. Yeah, there has to be, because Trump's enthusiasm is pushed by the more he rallies, the more enthusiastic his voters get. And the more of an advantage on enthusiasm he gets, the better he'll do in a likely voter screen. Okay. So he's got to put COVID behind him. At some point, the Sun Belt, I think that there's only so much he can do to do that. That's just reality. Because we got to take some of the hubris away that we have as a human. Like, I would say the West specifically. Like, we can stop the planet from going through planetary evolutions, or we can stop pandemics or hide from them and outsmart them, right? Like, we have this hubris about us. Trump can only do so much. Trump can only do so much, but the Sun Belt data is pretty much showing that that's it. I mean, at some point, you can't prevent herd immunity forever. It has to happen, right? So at the Sun Belt cases, clearly, and we look at this all the time, they're clearly at their peak. They are past their peak. So they're going to run out of room. They're going to run out of places to push pandemic porn. They're going to run out of places. It's over. I mean, all viruses change. But I haven't met anyone. I haven't met an epidemiologist, a virologist. I've met nobody who said that this thing is going to change and evolve into something worse. I will say this: the coverage is all about Moderna. Pfizer is ahead of Moderna. Don't ask me how. I'm telling you. I know Moderna gets the coverage because of the connections to who. We're gonna have a nice story on all of this. There will be a vaccine soon. I'm not telling you to take the vaccine. I'm not taking that vaccine. I'll tell you right now. I'm not taking it. But there will be a vaccine soon. So what I'm saying is there'll be a point where the media will have nothing really left to grasp onto, except for the death count. They'll try to make them out to be some, like he dropped the ball and 200,000 people died, but eventually it will move past the pandemic as a natural course. The question is whether or not it'll be there sooner rather than later. All Trump can do is keep praising the researchers, how quick they've done this, the treatments, the advancements we've made, and hammer that you think 200,000 deaths is bad. If Joe Biden was president, he never would have stopped travel from China. And even Dr. Fauci admits that would have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of more people, right? So that's all he really can do for it. I'm not sure there was a right way that Trump could have responded to this, except for not shutting down the economy. He should not have shut the economy down. Either way, they were going to hammer him. So this idea I get from these, like, I guess some of them are like former friends. I don't know, but they did not like that I went off the reservation. And I don't know where some of them, especially those most closest to me, I don't know where they ever got the impression that I'm like a cheerleader for Donald Trump. You clearly didn't know me as well as you thought you knew me. I am a cheerleader for you guys. I am a cheerleader for my family. I'm a cheerleader for the future of my country. Personally, I don't give a damn about one man. That's just the truth of it. And if you really do support someone, just as a matter of fact, and they make the wrong decisions, you're not supporting them by being a sycophant and cheering them on anyway, while they blindly walk into the buzzsaw. They are always going to find something to hammer him about, folks. If you support the guy, tell him to do the right. Everyone should support their president. And you want him to succeed so the country succeeds, as long as it's not something crazy, But it was the wrong thing to do. All right. And people got mad at me for going off the reservation on it, but that was never the right thing to do. And they didn't understand what I'm trying to explain to you right now, which is that no matter what Donald Trump does, they're always going to hammer him for it. So just do the right thing. Do the smart thing. Do what is backed by empirical evidence. Do what is right for the people. They scared the out of Donald Trump, folks. That's what they did. They showed him the Imperial College model. They said, and not only are all these people going to die, but these are your voters. That's what they did. These are your voters. All the older people, they'll be dead. Meanwhile, did Democrats make sure that as many old people died as possible? Who the hell sent those old people? Who infected the nursing homes? Right? So no matter what you do, they're going to come after you anyway. And they're going to try to spin it anyway. They are the big media hate machine. Their job is to push the handicap for the Democratic Party. Hashtag big media hate machine. Hashtag big media hate machine. Twitter, pound it. We had it going once. Not right? About a month ago, and then Twitter shut it down. Media handicap was going too, and they shut it down. Pound it. Media handicap. You guys want to know what I'm talking about? It looks like this. I'll have them both up there right now, and I'll keep them up there during the show. All right? Media handicap. During the break, which we're going to take in a second. But let me just say before we go that, U-Haul is calling me for some reason. I don't know. Probably trying to sell me something for moving. Don't forget to subscribe. We're so close. We may even be there right now. I haven't looked. I don't know. But don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Push it as much as you can. We need to get those numbers up. That's very important for the Barnes and Barris weekly polling show. All right. Very, very important. And of course, like the page People's Pundit Daily on Twitter. The ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to people'spunditdaily.com. And to those who have done so since we started this show, like I said, clearly the show has resulted in a boost in subscriptions. We absolutely love you for it and can't do it without you. So you doing that, all right, that's what fuels this. And it is what it is. So you get the credit. All you get the credit. You can do so by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. I'm going to take a break. We're going to listen to Bad Habit by the Grammy-considered Bowen Band. Yes, I did it right tonight. Yes. All right. And when we get back, we'll laugh at Joe Biden on some video clips and talk about in greater context. This man's got a problem with minority voters, and we'll talk about it. All right. See you in 2 minutes.
Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Wow, what great questions over the break. And Laura usually does like a quick preview. You know, these are the few we got. We're going to go through. What great questions, all great questions. So when we get through this Biden, I'm going to leave quite a bit of time, 20, 30 minutes for questions, because solid questions. And if we bug out early, we bug out early if we covered it. All right. Look, what I want to talk about, because everybody's, laughing at it. And really the last laugh is on Donald Trump, I guess. I mean, why aren't you leading this joker by 20 points by now? Well, it's because of COVID. I would argue maybe never in certain media polls. They're just like Fox News. They suck. All right. Quinnipiac, who I just blasted. I'm not going over that again. There are some polls, if you look at during the honeymoon period, or the supposed honeymoon period, he got robbed of a honeymoon period during, and that's the period right after, during and after inauguration, right after. All right. That's what I mean when I refer to a honeymoon period. We had Trump, I want to say the highest in Trump's approval rating. And then before I just blow smoke, let me go back and look at some of the old PPP polls, the old big data polls. I want to say 52, which is high for us. Okay. But it may be a little bit higher. Let me just double check. It's loading right now. All right. But some of those polls, even when we had Trump at his high, let me go to his high. 57 on January 25th. He was at 57%. That's a little high. 53, 52, he started to fall down to, and then he got to 46, 47 with a net negative. That was when the Mueller stuff started happening. He cratered. All right. But even at that period, we were still looking at Fox News was like, their all-time high, 49. They're all ABC, Washington Post, their all-time high, 47. Or the NBC Wall Street Journal, all-time high, 47, whatever it may be. All right. It was never going to be that those polls were ever going to show high approval ratings for Donald Trump, even Gallup for that matter. All right. It's just a way that they poll, which I will get to one of those great questions about why live caller polling or phone polling costs so much. We'll talk about that in a second or after the segment. But I still think right now, at least in the battleground states, that Trump would generally be leading right now if it wasn't for coronavirus. The economy was not going to slow down. A lot of people still believe this. They would say, well, the first quarter was slowing down. Read the Bureau of Economic Analysis press release yourself, folks. The stay-at-home orders in the latter month killed the first quarter. That's why the first quarter came in at -5. It wasn't going to slow down all that much at all. It was probably, if you try to estimate the numbers, the forecasts were very low, and it probably would have edged out the forecast by a little bit. It was not going, and then the second and third quarters probably would have been strong. So we were still looking at solid economic growth overall on an annual basis. He would have been leading had not for the pandemic and the shutdown, not just the pandemic, the decision to shut down the economy. And very, very important. I submit he still would have been leading. And as time went on, people started to get concerned about Biden's mental faculties. That may be a joke to the political class and the media class, but it is not a joke to the voter. Even Democratic primary voters started to but concerned about Biden's mental health. Okay. And there was also underlying problems with his vote share with the minority coalition. Yes, James Clyburn and black voters in South Carolina gave him the critical 2 weeks he needed to turn, well, not he, the media and his allies needed to paint Bernie as unelectable. But black voters in South Carolina's Democratic primary are not black voters overall in the entire electorate. And Trump, two things. Biden polls historically low for a Democratic candidate among minorities, and Trump is polling historically high for a Republican. Biden is ahead because of the white educated voter in these media polls. All right. There's no gains among working class voters for Biden, and there's some gains for seniors. That's true. But for the most part, he is historically weak with minority voters. And he said a few things. He's got you. First of all, you have his history. All right. On crime. That is bad nowadays. And then secondly, he has made a series of comments that are this last one, and I tend to give politicians the benefit of the doubt on this crap. I don't like this race baiting, race card crap. I don't like it. However, this last comment by Joe Biden was a racist comment. It was. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Let's play it. All right. And it's not overtly racist, but there is racism behind this comment. And I'm going to explain what I mean in a minute.
Yes. And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Marco Rubio. All right. Yeah. What he means by that, and this is why, I give people the benefit of the doubt. I do. What he means by that, everybody from my business knows what he's talking about. Florida. And he's, in a minute, I'm going to show you another clip. You have a very diverse group of Hispanics, and they don't vote monolithically. He means that black voters have been more monolithic. And what he believes is very indicative of a white liberal, especially a white career politician, establishment liberal. And he's trying to walk back these comments now, but it reveals that worldview, which is that black people don't think for themselves. That is, they don't make, and I'm sorry, but if you sat around a table with these people, you'd know, black voters don't make rational policy choices in the mind of a white liberal. That's what rational policy choice is, the term used by psephologists to basically that voters aren't voting tribally. They're voting because they believe that a certain party or policy is better. It's a rational choice that those policies are better for them. And white liberals don't believe that black voters, number one, make rational policy choices, and number two, are capable of making rational policy choices. And this is why I'm saying it is a racist comment, because it's the bigotry. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. And it's That is an inherent white liberal worldview. It's real. And Joe Biden has been part of it for many, 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 many years. That's why he thinks it's okay in the 90s to have supported the crime bills that he has supported. He doesn't see the problem with his history, because back then, blacks were actually begging for those kind of crime bills because it was them. It was their communities who were hurt the most by the violence in the inner cities. So he believes as long as the Democratic Party just continues to pander to them, they don't have the ability to make their own choices, to have rational policy decisions. I'm sad, but this is the way the white liberal thinks. Okay? And that's why he made the comment he made with Charlemagne. And let's do it again.
Well, you know,
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks. I will come back.
All right.
I look forward to seeing you in person.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, pal. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Charlemagne.
All right. And now take that into context with the white kids, black kids comment, minority kids comment. This is the way the white liberal thinks. You're not black if you don't vote for me. Why? You can't possibly be black because blacks don't make rational policy decisions. Blacks don't think for themselves. They're not diverse. They're monolithic. That's racism. That is racism, folks. It's not the kind of racism the big media hate machine has taught you to believe in. But that, as the once great said, that is the soft bigotry of low expectations. That is what they believe, hands down. And we know this because this is supposed to be Joe Biden's apology for the first comment. So he had to walk back and he flatly, I will say this, in the New York Times cover, carried water for him, printed his apology like a press release, not an actual news article. It was like the just reprint of the Biden campaign's press release when he made that comment to Charlemagne on the Breakfast Club. He did flatly apologize for it. But this time, he's not trying to apologize for it. This time, he is. But then he goes on and he doubles down. Okay? He doubles down and tries to explain what he means in the Uncle Joe kind of way. But all he really did was further illustrate, further reveal the mindset of the white liberal. No. You don't understand what I mean. If you go to Florida and you look at those, Hispanic communities, they're very different. They're very diverse. What he means is they vote differently. They are capable of voting for multiple parties based on rational policy decisions. But the black people, they're not like that. Meaning they're not capable of making rational policy decisions. This is how the white liberal thinks. And this is how he tries to offer his explanation.
We can build a new administration that reflects the full diversity of our nation and the full diversity of Latino communities. Now, when I mean full diversity, unlike the African-American community and many other communities, you're from everywhere, from Europe, from the tip of South America, all the way to our border in Mexico and in the Caribbean. And different backgrounds, different ethnicities, but all Latinos.
Yep. So there you have it. Different backgrounds. In other words, every black American voter is an urban voter who should hate white people so much and, think of themselves as oppressed descendants of slaves, who vote monolithically for the Democratic Party. And if you're not, and you're maybe an affluent black voter in the suburb whose vote is not automatically Democrat, or you are, like we have showed you before, a working class black man whose vote is not just automatically Democrat, you're not really black. Let's be real, folks. The old white liberal man knows better than you, okay? You're not really black. And I didn't mean anything by it. I'm simply pointing out that if Hispanics have Puerto Ricans and Mexicans and Cubans, and they all think very differently and have different culture. Blacks are not cultured. They have a single monolithic culture. That's what the hell is he talking about? That is what he means. So don't try to clarify yourself, Joe. We know what you mean. We know what you mean. You're not making it any better on yourself. And this is why, and this really compounds on the rest of the bad week that we could see Joe was going to have. So we mocked him last week for this. You remember this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Kingswood Community Center. Actually, that's the one down I used to work. As a joke. You didn't know where we were. Anyway, it's great to be here. And
that was not a joke. He forgot where the hell he was. He had a flashback, like people who have mental deficiencies and are degrading mentally. This is something is very common. They forget their place in time. He actually lost his sauce for a second, and he forgot where he was. Like, he misplaced himself, not just geography. He didn't just get geography messed up. Space-time was confused for that man for a second. He forgot what freaking year he was in. Okay? And it wasn't a joke, just like this wasn't a joke right here. And this, by the way, and again, this also, I don't know that this whole clip has this, but asking a black journalist, are you a drug addict? Like, are you on drugs? Like, basically, when challenged, did you take? And Joe Biden on multiple previous occasions, Joe Biden claimed to be tested regularly for cognitive testing. All right. Joe Biden, I sound like Joe Biden in front of right now. He, on multiple occasions, has claimed that he has been subjected to cognitive testing on a regular basis. And then he gets challenged with it, and this is what he comes up with.
Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental
He can't even say mental fitness. Not only is his mental fitness not good, but he can't even say. And before that, he was saying, I know you're trying to go with me. Come on, man. Come on, man. Doing that. Come on, man. You drugs on, man. I know you're trying to go with me. I know you're trying to go with me. Nah, I ain't been tested. You said, Joe, maybe you forgot, man. Maybe you forgot, like you forgot what state you were in, like you forgot what year it was in your press conference last week. Maybe you forgot. But to remind you, Joe, you claimed that you were subjected to cognitive testing on a regular basis. Did you forget that already? So then he wigs out, and this is, again, something very common with people who get older and start to have cognitive issues. When under pressure, and this is the scariest thing. This is the scariest part. When under pressure, when high stress, times of high stress, it gets worse. It gets worse. So he's being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and he can't get the words.
Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental
I mean, really.
He failed that one.
He failed that cognitive test. He failed that cognitive test. He doesn't know, folks. And these ideas, like he's tweeting, and I know while we're on the topic, it's another part of his bad week days. Like I said, Joe Biden's bad day, but it's really days. It's really a week. It's really 2 weeks because that presser happened 2 weeks ago. There was also the bit about the vice president nomination, the pick. He was supposed to announce his VP pick this week. What you saw was what you will see with a campaign when you have essentially what is a figurehead. He's not in charge. He's not even there. Joe Biden ain't even there anymore, folks. All right. But this is something what we saw with the fight over Kamala Harris. That story in Politico was a leak by people who were on the vice presidential committee to pick and vet and find the right candidate for him. They did not agree with the choice. So they leaked the smear to Politico, that is their job. Politico's job is to leak smears in a last minute attempt to influence what is going to happen or something, or the bill, whatever it may be. Even Republicans use Politico for that purpose. Establishment Republicans use Politico to smear or pressure or stop conservatives, from advancing something. All right. They even do it. And that leak from someone close to Chris Dodd saying that Dodd hates Harris and it's the wrong choice, that was an effort to stop the rollout of Kamala Harris. And then there was even more catastrophes. Those people, by the way, want Susan Rice and even others. Bass was another alternative. They want others. There were other people they thought that would be better than Kamala Harris. And that was a last-minute attempt to stop Biden from rolling out the nomination for Kamala Harris. And it worked, because that's what happens when you have a team of people around a figurehead. They fight, and they get into these internal fights. And Joe Biden really isn't the decision maker. Joe Biden doesn't know what underwear to put on in the morning, okay? He's not picking his vice presidential nominee, who will be the future president if Joe Biden wins the election, because Joe Biden's not making it through his first term. So these people are deadly serious because they see a chance to win this thing. They are deadly serious with who the hell they want as the number 2, because that number 2 is going to be a Joe Biden heartbeat away from the White House, from the presidency. And those people want to be, you got to know how the White House palace intrigue crap works and the power struggles within the White House. Those people want to be on top in those power struggles. They want their say. They want their interests to be advanced in a Biden / Harris or whoever administration. And Chris Dodd, Team Dodd, did not like Harris, did not want Harris. They wouldn't have the influence with Harris that they would have with one of their picks. So they did that. And that last minute leak. And then Joe Biden, because he is declining cognitively, he leaves out that was not a head fake. The AP seeing his notes about Harris was not a head fake. He's not capable of head faking anybody. Joe Biden used to be a very sharp guy, folks. For those of you, not intelligent, but sharp and witty and charming. He was likable dude. Huh?
Do you have that 80s clip?
About the street violence on it. Well, that's where I'm going with this. And the other people, the anti-Harris people, what they're worried about is Joe Biden's record on street crime, on violence in inner cities, on punishing black people, criminals. That his record is going to result, if you put somebody like Harris on the ticket with him, who also, her candidacy was ended by Tulsi Gabbard. Well, the death knell was put in when Tulsi Gabbard brought up her record as a prosecutor. Just because Kamala Harris is Indian, by the way, Indian Jamaican, does not mean she's going to help Biden get out the vote. I do have that clip, and I'll play it right now. This is baggage in the modern day Democratic Party. This is baggage right here. And putting someone like Kamala Harris on the ticket, those people fear, the Dodd people fear, is going to exacerbate this baggage because they're both going to have it.
Point out some specific things, 6 of them, that we find inadequate about the president's plan. I think the president has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America. And that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the president is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs and there'd be no market for them. Let's take a look at what the real problem is. It's not just how many people are using drugs. As the president said, the number of people using drugs, cocaine in particular, is down in our country. That's true. But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America. And that's terrible. I know it's hard to believe, but this very day, violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone. And the sad part is that we have no more police in the streets of our major cities than we had 10 years ago. And what the president proposes won't help much. What he proposes is no increase over what the Congress has already approved last year. In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time. That's why right now, 6 out of every 10 criminals who are arrested on drug charges have their cases dropped. That's why we think the president should triple the commitment that he's made tonight for police, prosecutors, and judges for our cities and our states.
Not enough police officers to catch the violent thugs and not enough prisons to hold them. That's Joe Biden's baggage. All right. And in this world today, in this day and age, this modern Democratic Party, that is a problem. Kamala Harris is not going to do any better to help alleviate those concerns with those voters, because these are the voters. And Tucker Carlson is right. This is the left-wing militia. All right. Actually, we don't even have to play the hands up, don't shoot chant, because that's against. They want to get those younger voters who are cheering hands up, don't shoot, no more police departments. Those voters are not going to be helped by a Harris ticket, okay? And that's up against when putting a choice against those older black voters that are men, because women are very allegiant to the Democratic Party, even though we did see one issue break them off a bit. And that issue is school choice. And putting Harris on the ticket is not going to help them make a decision up against something like this.
On Congress to finally enact school choice now. School choice is a big deal. Because access to education is the civil rights issue of our time. And I've heard that for the last, I would say, year, but it really is. It's the civil rights issue of our time.
And I want to leave some more time for questions, so I'm not going to play it. But that's up against Joe Biden that same week saying, you have Trump saying school choice is the civil rights issue of our time. That is music to those persuadable black voters' ears. Okay. And that is up against Joe Biden saying that George Floyd, it was more important than Martin Luther King. Adding Kamala Harris, the most unlikable top-tier candidate in the Democratic nomination, to the ticket is not going to help Joe Biden in this area. And in truth, Joe Biden is having a problem with black voter support, solidifying black voter support up against somebody like Donald Trump. That's just true. They know it. And he's also having a problem solidifying support for Hispanics, which is why he even fell into that trap in that interview. And they're hiring Ana Navarro in an attempt to try to beef up the Hispanic support because they see what I see, which is an uptick among Puerto Ricans. That's a problem. And Harris is not going to help that problem. Full stop. End of story. But Laura's telling me there's a ton of questions. So let me get through my spiel and then we'll start to answer some questions. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe. We are so close, so close. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. All right. And share it with, people you think may like the show. Tell them to subscribe as well. Facebook users, I know you're using Facebook still. I know the vast majority of you using Facebook. Don't play me. Roll on over. We can do better than where we're at right now. We neglected our Facebook page for so long because our following is obviously Twitter. We can do better with Facebook, folks. Like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, okay? And don't forget, of course, the ultimate way to support the show and to see it grow is to subscribe to peoplespunditdaily.com, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe, ppdnews.us/subscribe. And thank you to those who have done that already. All right, let's hit some questions. I'll mute myself. What's up, Laura? What do we got next?
Questions. 24/7 has a great question. Any predictions on an October surprise? But there's also another one with him. And if Biden strokes out, how will the plan move forward?
So in the event something really did happen, that look, political parties never want to replace their nominee. It's been an utter disaster the few times where something like that had to happen. Look, Hillary Clinton collapsed at the memorial service for 9/11 in New York City. She had to be thrown into the van like a slab of meat. They still didn't replace her. They will make up something that will try. If in the event, though, let's say, and I don't think Biden, I've answered this before, Biden won't be replaced. But let's say in the event something tragic were to happen, all right? They'll just make the number 2 the nominee, probably. I mean, that's it. Really, it should be the second best vote getter. But that's a nightmare situation for them, because what would happen? Bernie Sanders voters would say we have the second highest number of delegates. We were absolutely the front runner for a long time. We should get the nomination. And the party would deny that to him. There's no doubt they would deny that, because they already spent all of that time saying, we like Bernie, we respect Bernie, we're going to welcome him and his voters into our coalition, but he's unelectable. So they can't do that. They just can't do it. All right. And then as to the first question, which was about the October surprise, I think that the October surprise, I'll tell you, this Durham thing, I do think there will be some people who face some form of consequence for what happened. But I think the Durham thing, as if you guys didn't see the show with Robert and I on Wednesday, I really do think the Durham thing was to stop the constant attacks from the intelligence community. All right. The constant subversion, really the constant dark art, which is what they call it, the dark arts. Misinformation campaigns in an effort. They do this in other countries to wage coups and stage coups. That's what they were doing to you. All right. But at some point there could be. And it's funny he asked this question now, because if you would ask me on Wednesday, I would have said, no, it's not going to come before the election. But I did hear some rumblings yesterday that made me think to doubt myself, to give me some doubt that really Durham is the kind of guy who just doesn't care, right? But I was always told that this was really to set and to tell a story to the American people. You were lied to. You were defrauded. This is what they did to you. Take what you will with that. Not that it was really about indictments or political prosecutions or what they'll say is political, because they're not. These people deserve to be punished. They broke laws. It was a conspiracy to defraud the American public. If there is an October surprise, it may come before October, just so they don't feel like they're in a position where people can say, well, you were doing this to influence the election. Okay. Durham and Barr, both, they're smeared now, up and down, up and down. But in truth, and we have a story on this on People's Pundit Daily, if you guys want to read about it, go back and ask people who have known these people for years, for decades, and they will tell you these are honorable men. And they're only being smeared now because they're afraid that they're going to hurt them with the Russia probe. That's it. These are not political people. William Barr is not a political person. So if there is a surprise, an October surprise, it would be September probably. Also, one more thing on that real quick. The October surprise may already have been here. Kanye West is getting on a lot of these ballots. Now we have Colorado, we have Wisconsin.
You have a question for that?
I personally, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Trump and Kanye are boys, yo. Okay? They're boys. Kanye is trying to pull some of the black vote away from Joe Biden so Trump can sneak in there. Look, Tough crap, whiny little libs. You did that in 2018, up and down the ballot, fake independents, fake conservative alternatives. Let's be real. And they just so happen to be disproportionately in districts where prior intelligence community or national security people were running, like Virginia 7 and on and on and on. I mean, get out of here. You dish it out, but you can't take it. I'm so tired of them. Take your own medicine, suck it down with a spoonful of sugar. All right. Listen to Mary Poppins, get the hell over it. Suck it up, Buttercup. All right. Republicans never do that. They are always the ones who have votes siphoned from them. Gone are the days of what's his name? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Oh, wow. The Green Party guy who used to siphon votes from Democrats. Disproportionately, this has been a Republican ticket issue going back to Ross Perot. Bill Clinton you could argue he would not have won that election in 92 against George Bush. If you look at the Roper exit polls, he took votes from George Herbert Walker Bush. All right. I mean, I'm not sure I totally believe that, but it's absolutely a strong argument. And then you had Nader, Ralph Nader. God, his name was killing me for 2 election cycles. And then ever since, there's always been a libertarian or an independent that is there to suck votes away. So get the hell over it. Jill Stein was not the candidate that Gary Johnson was, even in 2016 when we had both Libertarian and Green parties on it. So get the hell over it. All right, folks. All right, moving on. Let's get this other question.
All right. So Gentleman Nee had several questions. Should Pat Toomey run for re-election if it's a Trump midterm, a Biden midterm? Also, could Connor Lamb, probably the strongest Dem candidate for that seat, lose this year? And also, how much stronger would 2008 or 2012 Biden be if he had a time machine and came here to take 2020 Biden place as a nominee? Sorry, that was funny.
No, it is funny, but it is also, that's a great question. I'll work backwards here. Okay. I think that Joe Biden, oops, I didn't mute your mic. I think that Joe Biden wiped the floor with Paul Ryan in that debate. If you're a policy person, you thought Paul Ryan won, and me instinctively, I thought, not instinctively, politically is where my instincts lie. But if I'm like an intellectual, I'm trying to watch it as a policy wonk, I would have said, well, Joe Biden didn't make much sense. Paul Ryan made more sense policy wise. Paul Ryan is the better vote, kind of thing. But I'm not. I look at things from an optical point of view and how it looks politically for optics. I thought the smart, witty, likable Biden beat a very dry, policy wonkish, unrelatable Paul Ryan, right? That Joe Biden would be a big, much bigger threat to Donald Trump than this Joe Biden is. I think that like I said, he's never been really a smart guy, but he was a witty and likable guy. That would be an even bigger problem for Donald Trump. Even if, let me put it this way, if the pandemic didn't come and the shutdown didn't happen, Donald Trump would have wiped the floor with this Joe Biden. Wiped the freaking floor. If it was that Joe Biden and the pandemic didn't come, it would have been a close race. All right. And I mean, when I say wipe the floor, we're in an era where all presidential elections are close. But you can still wipe the floor with somebody in the Electoral College, even though if you look individually in the states, it's really damn close. All right. But I would say that the old Joe Biden would have kept it much closer, even in both ways, electoral and popular. Whereas this Joe Biden, he needed this pandemic lure. He needs this pandemic. He needs the overt lies from the media. He needs to hide in the basement. He can't debate. He can't accept the nomination in Minneapolis. He can't do anything, or whatever. He can't do anything the way a traditional candidate has done it. He simply can't. He just can't. All right. Moving on. All right. The next one, Connor Lamb. I think Connor Lamb actually is in trouble and I'm basing that on 2 polls from people that I have seen that I trust. And I was actually shocked by them because I would have told you Rick Saccone was the last chance to keep that district, but it didn't really matter because that district was redrawn anyway, and Rick Saccone would have never have kept it come November or come the next election because there was an interval between that. Connor Lamb, however, he's done a series of things, and there's a very strong Republican candidate. Milwaukee, thank you. Very strong Republican candidate, so it's making the race tighter. And in 2 polls, I actually saw Lamb was down. He was down. One was big, and the other one was about 6 points. That's not to say it'll end up with Lamb, but the answer to the question is absolutely he could lose. Pat Toomey, Trump drugged Pat Toomey across the finish line in the state of Pennsylvania, which is funny because if you guys remember, that was one of the many states where polls were showing a more establishment Republican candidate for U.S. Senate was going to fare better than Donald Trump in that state. Kelly Ayotte, as you all may remember, was another one. That didn't work out that well, and Trump nearly carried the state of New Hampshire. He nearly pulled Kelly Ayotte over with him. Same thing with Pat Toomey and the myriad examples. In the end, those senators got more from the Trump coalition than the Trump coalition got from the traditional Republican coalition. So Pat Toomey would be in trouble unless Trump wins again in a landslide, or not even a landslide. That's Trump wins, and then the country, his approval rating in the country is more on board with Trump. That is really otherwise Toomey is in deep trouble. He's in deep trouble because he's done things to piss off Trump voters. These guys are never going to learn you can't walk the line. They're never going to learn. There's nothing you can do to walk the line. All right. I see Laura chuckling over there, so must be making somebody laugh. So was that the last? Toomey was the last one. The bottom line is Toomey, if Biden wins, Toomey will stand a better chance because a first-term incumbent midterm is usually a bloodbath. All right. So that's the answer to that. All right. Let's roll on. Oh, wait. She's laughing over there.
I love our listeners. All right. You ready for your next question? All right. So, where are we? All right. Angela, she wants to know, are Ohio GOP insiders and Trump's people worried about Ohio? Does Kasich speaking at the DNC do anything to swing the vote there to Biden?
Nope. None whatsoever. Donald Trump's approval number was strong. Donald Trump is more popular in Ohio than John Kasich is. Donald Trump's win in Ohio was not because the Republican establishment was behind him. They did nothing for Donald Trump. What John Kasich did and speaking out against him, it's irrelevant. People don't give a damn about Joe Biden's opinion, John Kasich's opinion at Joe Biden's convention. And in fact, people can't stand turncoats. People don't. That's why Charlie Crist had such a hard time down here. People don't like turncoats. They'll try to paint that as like some principled move or something. Voters hate turncoats. Like, I'm a Republican, then I'm a Democrat. They hate that crap. And the people that are persuadable hate it the most. Yeah, well, aside from the base that's betrayed, but you know what I mean. They loathe it. It looks like a very, very typical politician. Weasels. Backstabbing weasels. It reinforces that. Trump was more popular than John Kasich, who won his election by 2 points, all right, in an election cycle that was heavily pro-Republican. Even Rob Portman, who won his in a landslide, again, very clear example of Portman benefiting from the Trump coalition more than the Trump coalition benefited from the Republican establishment coalition, such as the ones that would go out and vote for a Kasich or a Portman. And in fact, Kasich turned his get out the vote operation against Donald Trump in Ohio in 2016. A lot of people don't know that. That actually happened. Kasich or the people who worked for him, they turned that get out the vote operation against him. And he still won. And he won by a historic margin. Go back and look and tell me which poll showed Ohio going for Donald Trump by 9 points. I'll be honest with you. Our second to last poll was Trump +5. Our very final poll was Trump +3. And if you watch the show on Wednesday, you know why. They're hard to reach those southeastern, traditionally Democrat areas of working class people. They went so heavy for Donald Trump, heavily for Donald Trump. We didn't think they were two things. We didn't think they'd go that heavy. And number two, we didn't think they'd come out that hard. Like they were a bigger share of the electorate than we thought they would be. And no, you're just not. It's very difficult to poll that. Those people, they don't give a damn about John Kasich. They probably didn't even vote for John Kasich. Many of them. Those are not traditional Republican voters that gave Donald Trump a 9-point win in Ohio. Those are Democrats, folks. Those are white, working class Democrats. And I don't think Ohio is particularly competitive. I don't. The polls in 2018 proved in Ohio to be about as bad or worse in many cases than the 2016 polls. Polls in Ohio is another state. Ohio is another state where polls are just getting worse. Richard Cordray led Mike DeWine in every single poll in the 2018 gubernatorial race. Every single poll went against Mike DeWine, save for one NBC Marist poll that showed DeWine up by just 2 points, and that was in July. Then they herded with everybody else, and Richard Cordray was expected to take that anywhere between, go look, 5 and 18 points or something crazy. Sherrod Brown, he ultimately held on against a very weak Republican candidate. Sorry, John, you are, Jim. Josh Mandel would have crushed Sherrod Brown. We polled it all the way up until the very first when Josh Mandel backed out of that race. We polled with Renaci, however the hell he says his name. I'm Italian and he changes it to a way that is really not Italian to pronounce it. But in the end, we polled it one time. We could see the what marks you need to hit to be able to carry the state of Ohio as a Republican. He was grossly below them. We stopped wasting our money. We weren't going to poll it again. I said, he's going to lose. That's it. Brown, the incumbent's going to hold on. Moving on. Likely Democrat. Moving on. And we did. But Josh Mandel would have killed Sherrod Brown. Minimum 7 points. Minimum. And that didn't happen. But just what I'm saying is keep in mind that the Ohio polls were terrible. And then Ohio, like Florida, bucked the national trend. Democrats basically didn't make gains anywhere. They barely. Brown's margin of victory was grossly below where he polled, his level of support in the polls. He did not win by the USA Today 18-point margin. Go look it up. And Mike DeWine is the governor of Ohio, not Richard Cordray. All right? The polls wouldn't have told you any of that. So I have no confidence that Ohio's polls have improved or they've identified what the problem is in the state of Ohio. I have no confidence in that state. I have no confidence in Florida. I've got no confidence in North Carolina and several other places. They are just very bad at polling these states. All right? And refuse to learn their lesson. And if you were to ask Robert Barnes about it, which we can do on Wednesday, he'll tell you he flatly thinks it's intentional. Flatly. All right. All right, moving on. Let's get the next one. What's up?
All right. Well, let's see. Somebody asked how you remember all this, and I told them that your nickname from me is Encardia because you're like a encyclopedia of information. But going on to the question with Sir J. Pat, is the Minneapolis fiasco something that will cause that 5 to 6% increase? And do you think Scott Walker has a future still in Wisconsin?
Those are two great questions. With Scott Walker, again, I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you I absolutely love Scott Walker. He did something, though, that is very difficult. You can't run. Sometimes you're just on the ballot too often. And again, Walker was considerably underpolled in his support. He was supposed to get blown out there. He didn't. It was very close. 0.2 of a percentage point, if I remember correctly. Very, very close. But you just can't be on the ballot that much. If I was Scott Walker, I would run for U.S. Senate. He wasn't ready for prime time when he ran in 2016. I think he was, aside from Trump. I will say this, and I will say this definitively. Scott Walker was the only other candidate in 2016 who could have defeated Hillary Clinton. Had he been ready for prime time, and why? Why, you ask? Why? Donald Trump could have lost the state of Florida and still won the Electoral College. That's how much of the blue wall he took and how many electoral votes there are there. Okay? As long as he held the other states. Scott Walker was the only other one with Midwest support. And is a really strong candidate in the Republican side will lead in the nomination race in both Iowa and New Hampshire. That's how you know he'll be a strong candidate, because he appeals, or she appeals, to the hokey Midwest folks, right? And very down to earth, Captain America kind of values, you know, and then also to the more moderate Manchester Republicans. So if they're leading in both of those states, it's a pretty good indicator they have solid appeal from the Midwest on down. And in the South, they're going to win too, right? So that was Scott Walker, and he was very strong. I only see a future for Scott Walker as if he regroups, runs for U.S. Senate, and becomes a popular senator. That's it. I really do. You can't run again as governor. Just sometimes, even though people like you, you're just on the ballot too much. Just one too many times they see your name and face, and people don't like that. He should have stopped, honestly. He should have stopped in 2018. He really should have. But, you know, he's doing what he thought he was doing for the country. And then what was the other question? Minneapolis. Yes, the answer to this question is absolutely. Here's the problem, too. We don't know how these voters, and you can look from real estate data, we don't know how some of these voters are going to pan out when they flee these urban areas. A lot of times, urban, or not even urban, a lot of times blue voters will flee an area that they have created. Whatever they hate about the area, it's their fault, and they voted for it. You get the government you deserve. Yet they'll want to run to an area that's Republican controlled because they like it better for myriad reasons. And yet they'll vote blue when they get there. We are yet to know how this is going to pan out, because there is no doubt people from urban, Minnesota running to the Twin Cities suburbs. So it may be a different electorate, and we're keeping our eye very close on the voter file to see if there are change of address flags that start going off that can tell us something about that. But unfortunately, this happens so late in the game. People don't make these changes that quick. So we have to rely on some other stuff. But yes, the answer to the question is yes. They get scared. They run out, try to look for refuge. The only way, for those of you who may be too young to remember, Rudy Giuliani was a Republican in a very blue city. It took the city, I can't tell you what it was like back then. It took the white liberal, the white gentry liberal, to say, I'm done, I'm scared, I'm voting for Rudy Giuliani. It was bad, folks. It was really, really bad. And I would just say that I'm not sure we're there yet, number one. And number two, there's something going on now that we didn't have before, which is the total indoctrination on college campuses. These people think differently, Yes, even Trafalgar, by the way, had Cordray by 4. Thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to point that out. It's, Ohio, I'm not at all trustworthy of polls in Ohio. All right. But just to bring back real quick before we move on, it's a little bit different, but I do think these women, and we were talking about them earlier in the week, what the media means by a suburban woman voter. They mean a white, educated, lives in a $500,000 home or more. They think everybody in suburbia looks like that, right? Or that's who they're focused on, laser focused on. But in truth, those are the women who will be scared by. We actually saw it happen in 2004, where Democrats were apologizing a lot for some of the stuff that happened. And George W. Bush was seen as the national security candidate. So the national security mom, they were called back then, they went for George Bush, even though they were registered Democrats, millions and millions of them, about 3.5 million, that Democrats thought, yes, we got these women out. Oh, crap, they're voting against us. And the exit polls were terrible. And go back, look at the Tim Russert clips. You'll see, look at Paul Begala, their faces as election nights go on. That was the voter they targeted. This is not a new playbook for them, folks. They've been doing this stuff for years. All right. And their face as the night went on, oh my God, how did we mispoll this? And it was because they weren't feeling safe and comfortable, and it overrode party affiliation. And that is what Trump needs to focus on. All right. And then for the worker, to get those workers out there, he's got to hammer Beijing, Biden, Beijing, Biden, Beijing, Biden, Beijing, Biden. All right. Think the pandemic was bad. Think not getting supplies in time is bad. This was all Biden's fault. He built the world that made this possible. He helped anyway build the world that made this possible. And then Beijing Biden let his son cash in on it. That's what he's got to do. All right. All right. Let's do one or two more here, Laura. Go ahead. Rock out.
You mean 1 or 4 more, or maybe 5 more? Because that's about what I have. So here we go. Lamp Crow, why did they beg him to run for re-election, meaning Rubio? I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So Marco Rubio does have, and he did, if you look at his re-election, he won by about 4 points. Okay. That was because he did better in Duval and then the southeastern part of the state. He had more than just a Cuban operation. So even Republicans don't really understand this. They don't get it. Donald Trump is very, 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 very popular with Cubans. Trumpism is very, very, very popular with Cubans. Marco Rubio, he did better with Hispanics in general. He did no better with Cubans. No better. What he did do was better with other Hispanics, mainly Puerto Rican voters in the I-4 corridor. So,
see how you look at me.
Yeah. So, right. I mean, so Laura is Puerto Rican, folks. All right. So she's mocking me right now, in case you can't hear her. Yeah. But that is really why. And they begged him to run because they didn't trust. And I think the other half, no, they did not trust Ron DeSantis or others to win that seat. And in fact, they didn't trust Ron DeSantis to win in 2018, the gubernatorial election either. They wanted the Rhino candidate who would have probably lost to Andrew Gillum. In fact, he would have probably lost because the thing about Ron DeSantis actually makes him quite likable. Appeal to Puerto Rican, like certain swing Puerto Rican voters and even black women with the school choice stuff, right? He's hokey. He's like a good Southern boy from a good Southern Florida Pinellas guy. I mean, I think Pinellas, right? Yeah, that's where he grew up, I think. And you can see it, and he comes across, he's very nice, looks like a very nice guy. So that's, they didn't like, that's how, though, the establishment GOP thinks. Right. So they still don't even realize what made the difference between Trump's almost 2-point win and Rubio's 4-point win. And they think somehow he juiced the Cuban turnout more or something like that. They're crazy. Not crazy. They're stupid. They don't know. And they don't. So the answer is no, they didn't trust them to run either one of those candidates to run a competent race. They thought they would lose the seat in Florida if Rubio did not win. All right. So that's the answer to that. And was there a second question? No, I got that. Right. Okay. All right. Next up.
All right. Matthew, he wants to know, do you think the Dems run a moderate or far left candidate in 2024, regardless what happens in 2020?
Ooh, that's a good question. All right. If Donald Trump wins, which I, by that question, assume the questioner, it's a shoo-in, right, for Trump. I assume they believe that, right? If Joe Biden loses, the left is going to have a complete meltdown because they were told that, look what you did last time. Look what you did. Walter Mondale. This is a Mondale election. If they did, Bernie's going to get killed. You got to vote for Joe Biden. And they convinced the party that, even though the party did not agree with Joe Biden. They didn't. They agreed with Bernie Sanders, but they took the bait. They're not capable of doing what Republicans did in 2016, which is to shut it out and make their own minds up. I'm sorry. It's just true. They did not declare independence. The media and the Democratic establishment picked the nominee. They duped Democratic primary voters. Sorry, guys, you got duped. All right. In 2020, if Biden loses in November, they're going to flip out, and you will see an AOC-like nominee for 2 reasons. One, because Biden lost, and it's going to be like a backlash, like Mitt Romney was a backlash. And then 2, folks, the party is getting farther and further to the left. We see it in the House races. They're going farther to the left. Joe Biden only got this nomination because of what I just told you. They dupe voters into telling people on a national level, maybe not district-wide, but on a national level, somebody like Bernie cannot win. But at the House level, we see it. It is getting more and more to the left. 4 years from now, the Democratic Party, they're already outwardly socialist. Let's get real. 4 years from now, they will be vehemently. If you think they're anti-American now and anti-Americanism now, just wait. It's only going to get worse until, if you want my opinion and you want what I think is going to happen, I think this is going to happen. They're going to eventually clash. This isn't headed in a peaceful direction. There just isn't. As long as there's somebody fighting for American values, there's going to be a fight, folks. I don't care what anybody says. This is not the way history works. And I know, by the way, that there are a lot of other personalities, media personalities, who are smart enough to know that. And they downplay the potential for a fight because they feel like it's the responsible thing.
They're afraid of it.
But they're afraid of it too. Yes. This is not headed in the right direction. There is no way to bridge the divide. It's either total defeat or a fight. And I mean total defeat by total electoral defeat. It'll get more radical with using the levers of the justice system to persecute political enemies. That's what leftism does, folks. I don't know why we are like surprised by the Robert Mueller investigation, and even there are a lot of other examples of using the justice system to persecute political opponents for political gain. That is what the left does. That's what the left has always done. All right. So, I mean, it's just going to get worse. I think in the end, it'll be a more left-wing candidate regardless. But if Biden loses, we're getting a quack. That's going to happen. All right. And unfortunately, because of the pendulum that is American politics, there's a real chance someone like that could win. I mean, I know it's crazy, but it's true. Those pics of Gillum. Oof. Yeah. And think about how close to Andrew Gillum was to becoming the governor of Florida. He was already under FBI investigation, but he was a radical leftist and they loved him, and he was black and they loved him. They overlooked everything because the signs were always there. Always there. All right. Let's go with Laura. It's 11:06. Let's do.
I have 3 more questions.
Okay, let's get through them then. Let's go.
Maybe 4.
3.
All right. So Baba wants to know, speaking of 2024, do you think DeSantis could run and win the Republican in 2024?
All right. So right now, 2024, especially if Trump loses, 2024 is gearing up to be a DeSantis versus Nikki Haley election. Okay. I do know Nikki Haley is running for president in 2024. I've spoken to multiple big Republican donors. She has been in their homes. She has told them. There were even some of them that wanted her to run this time to unseat Trump. And she said, I will do nothing to upset the Trump base. She doesn't agree with the Trump base, but she was loyal to her president and she respected it. So she was very smart, very shrewd, but she absolutely is running in 2024. So they said, do it. She said, no, I will do nothing to upset the Trump base, but I am running for president in 2024. And I'm letting you know now because I want a fundraiser Rolodex in place and ready to go. Ron DeSantis has the highest approval rating for any governor in the state of Florida I've seen in a very long time. That includes Rick Scott post Irma, who did a complete image makeover. He was not popular. He won with like 40% approval ratings, 38% favorability ratings. He is the giant slayer, Rick Scott. But he did have a solid approval rating. I think, what did he get to in ours, Laura? 56 or maybe a little even higher. But Ron DeSantis has been upwards close to 70% in our polling, 68, 66. It's crazy. So he would obviously be a huge force to be reckoned with because he could say, easily going to carry the state of Florida. I take Florida off the map. That's to be able to say you take Florida off the map is like big, folks. It's 29 electoral votes and counting because we have a new census coming. And the Northeast is going to lose more electoral votes. The West and the South will gain them. So it is what it is, Okay, let's move on to the next one.
All right. Sir Pat wants to know if the teacher union power image slips because of this shutdown. Do you think Matt Bevin has a future in Kentucky?
It's not just Bevin's beef too, just wasn't only with teachers unions. And I think people forget, but there was a lot. Kentucky was, especially the 5th congressional district, was a very Democrat union state for many, many years. But that was the working man and coal and stuff like that. Democrats have since turned their back on coal. I don't think so. I think because it's more when you do that, it's the backlash for teachers unions. Thank God. But there are people who have family members who that impacted, and it's tough. Matt Bevin, it's possible. I mean, it is possible, but Matt Bevin would need a serious image makeover. Yeah, he would. He should never have lost that race. He should never have.
All right. Your next question is no, you have 2 more. Because come on, I promised Tweety I'd get it in. All right. First, it's Ken Roeder's question. He wants to know how we're doing in Florida.
That's a simple one. You guys know how I feel about Florida polling. It's abysmal. It's horrible. If we do, that's one of the things I'm kind of struggling with. So there could be like the Sun Belt battleground, because there are now, if you include Georgia, multiple places. We used to do, if you guys remember, the Sunshine State battleground poll, and it was a tracker. There's something that pollsters are missing, and we were talking about it a little bit earlier in the week. I think Trump is probably looking at, like, I think he'll be extremely difficult to beat in the state of Florida. I know the state like the back of my hand. Quinnipiac doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground. All right. So they know nothing. They are worthless. You could like print it on the printer and then go do your business with it. They're useless. I know where every single vote in the state of Florida comes from. And I'm telling you, Democrats are at the least advantage they have had since 1972, and independents are not moving even when they have swung, and we've seen them. They have not swung even to 2018 levels yet against Donald Trump. So because there are some independents that like Trump more than they like other candidates. I don't see it, folks. I don't see it yet. I'd give Trump a 2-point win in the state of Florida right now. And if things turn around for Donald Trump is the kind of Republican candidate who could get like an Obama size margin, or not even Obama, but Obama to Bush 04 kind of size margin out of the state of Florida. He could do that. I really do. But it would have to turn around on him. But even at their worst, Republicans still beat back a national 10-point national mood favoring Democrats. They still beat Republicans back Democrats back in the state of Florida. Donald Trump will be very difficult to beat.
My turn? Okay. So Tweety wants to know if you could comment on Trump's Whirlpool speech, where due to angry, powerful enemies, we may not see him for a while. Angry about his pharma plan making cheap drugs available.
I think, personally, the more Donald Trump gets out and makes those kinds of speeches, the better. And I know what you're saying. They'll do that. Trump can't hold rallies right now. So he has to, and by the way, there was not enough coverage of that event. Yes. It's just not enough. He's going to have to do it so much. They're going to have to exhaust it as an option right now to fill in for the lack of rally. The media will not tell anybody about these policy events. He has to just continue to do them. I thought it was a great speech. Some of the best speeches Donald Trump has ever given have been these presidential event speeches. And then he's got to stop stepping on himself, though, during it. Like the NASA speech was fantastic. And then he tweets something dumb and everybody speaks about that. The point is, though, some of these speeches should be like Oval Office addresses, and he never does it. And then when he does rarely use the Oval Office, he gives something that's less like subpar to that. So he has not been effective. I totally agree with Barnes in what he was saying earlier in the week. The communications team at the White House has not been great, and the communications with the campaign team is abysmal. So he is now the incumbent president and cannot do what he did in 2016 to hold on. It's a new campaign. I loved the Whirlpool. He needs to do that all the time. All the time.
Oh, you're giving me more leeway? Another question? Oh, well, I have another one. Michael Thomas asks, well, I actually have quite a few, but Michael Thomas, why are phone polls so costly?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm glad I forgot about that one. And I told her during the break, I said, ooh, I like that one. You guys asked a lot of great questions. It's like 1:15 and I'll never get anything done if I keep going. But that's why I like Freewheeling Friday, because I wanted this show to be like that. And I saw a question like that and I jumped. Okay. Live caller specifically is a lot more money because you're hiring. Most of these people don't even have their own call centers or employees. They're hiring out call centers. Those people are working. It's a numbers game. So it's very difficult to get somebody live on the phone. The response rates already are abysmal, below 9%, 7%. And then to get somebody to complete that survey questionnaire, you'd be surprised how many people hang up in the middle of the damn survey. I mean, it's a really, you know what, one day I should show them. I could show you guys actually from phone interviews how many. I'll show you the raw. And it's not, a ton, but it's when you're taking that much time to gather just that amount. And then you see how many people, when you export like the CSV file or the Excel spreadsheet that shows you the rows and columns of answers, you'll see how many give up when you get to like demographics or something, or whatever it may be. There, after 5 minutes, they're like, I'm done. I'm sorry. I hope that's enough. Bye. And they'll hang up. And you can't use it because you didn't get all the demographic questions. We have ways of figuring out how to use it, by the way, if we know exactly who we're talking to, but I'm not giving that up. All right. But that cuts down on productivity. And that's the more time that actual individuals have to be paid an hourly rate or a per response rate to gather. It takes a long time and it takes more people. IVR, even still, is sometimes it depends on how long the questionnaire is, what you want to add to it. It still can be, it's a lot less costly to do IVR. But in the end, you're paying for data usage. So how much data did you use? How many channels are you using? So let me give them an example. Is that all right? Can I do? You don't mind if I want to reach 500 people in a day or maybe 2 days, I really need to use a lot of channels. Let's say I have like 8 channels and each channel can make 30 calls simultaneously. All right. The response rate is so bad and the participation rates are even worse. They're so bad. You need to be firing like 100 channels to make sure that you can gather all of those responses. You're going to pay. Every company is different, but you're going to pay by data usage, and those channels, how much will use a lot of data. You're going to have to pay extra to have more channels or get more channel capability. You'll have to expand on that, and then you'll have to pay, and data usage goes by how big the questionnaire is. These media polls love these long questionnaires, which means, the estimated time to complete is going to be like 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes. Nobody wants to hang on the phone that long, so you're going to deal with hangups, and you have to get people who will stay on. It just racks up. That's the answer to that. It just racks up. It's unproductive and extremely costly. It's an abomination to any industry whatsoever. And yet they continue to do it because it's a boys club and it's a status quo. It's a money. It's a cash cow. So they do it. With panel polling, it depends. If you go to vendors, and we only use vendors who we have relationships with the voter file, so we know their voters if we use panels. And then also my personal favorite is I like just getting the emails from the voter file and then reaching out to them myself and saying, hi, this is Big Data Poll. We're going to conduct the Rust Belt Battleground Poll. Would you be willing to participate in our survey? It'll be a weekly tracker. All you have to do is answer about a questionnaire through a link, a secure link, all right, once a week, and hand it back in. That's it. And we do incentivize people, but we never incentivize through gift cards and crap like that. So it helps to keep the cost down. So whereas a phone poll will ultimately break down, and if I give numbers, man, people are going to hate me. It will be about 4 or 5 times. It could be about 4 or 5 times the price per response doing a phone poll. Like a phone poll like Barnes is not joking. Like 20, 40 grand, you could really rack it up. All right. with online polling, you could keep it much lower. IVR probably is the lowest, but I don't like I won't do an IVR poll alone. I simply won't do it. I'll add it as a component to reach older conservatives who want anonymity, but I will not conduct a simple IVR poll. IVR plus online, okay. IVR plus online plus SMS text responses, best for me. That's I feel more comfortable. This way I know I'm reaching as many people as possible. But with the online panels, we will incentivize only by, you can choose if it's a tracking poll like 2016 or something. You can choose out of left-wing charity organizations, right-wing charity organizations, or something right smack in the middle, like St. Jude's Hospital or something. For every response you give, every questionnaire you give, we will give such and such a small amount, but it adds up when you're talking about how many responses you need for a poll. Maybe you give $1 or something, but you get 1,000 responses or 2,000 responses in the poll. You just made a $2,000 donation to various charities. The reason why we like that better, and we actually got that idea from SurveyMonkey, I'll be honest, was because it promotes it not only promotes civic duty and obligation, but it attracts people who want to promote civic duty or engage in it, right? Why do we care about that? Because people who vote take it as a civic duty, right? It helps with the likely voter screen, all right? And what they're doing is putting the rest of that money in their pocket, unfortunately, instead of doing what we'll do, which is spend it on data appends or making sure, and what I mean by that is deduping or appending it so we know that those people are actual voters, So the more accurate, honestly, and it's sad to say, the more accurate you want to be tends to rise the cost of the poll, but phone polls are just inherently very, very expensive and very, very unproductive. So it is called the gold standard in media. That is to keep certain people's wallets fat, because it is not the gold standard in accuracy. And it sure as hell is not the gold standard in cost efficiency for your clients or the American people if they're the ones paying for it. Do I add live caller components to polls? Yep, I do. Because sometimes I want to reach the liberals or people who are more willing to participate in it. Maybe I feel like I'm looking at responses and the IVR is gathering too much and it looks too conservative. So then I add a live caller phone component to a cell phone or something, right? And usually, even with live caller, I'll split between landlines and cell phones, 60-40, something like that. All right. Depends on where I'm polling. That's why. All right. So let's wrap that up, Laura. Is that cool with you? We can wrap that up. We got a lot, right? Gather some, whatever ones we didn't get from last week. Gather, okay? She's already got them. She's already copied and pasted them. I'm telling you. Best producer. And she's really going to love the new stuff that we got. We just haven't, between the move and everything, we really not have time to implement Wirecast to its potential. And when we do, it's going to be even cooler because you guys, you subscribe. You, some of you, unbelievably find my PayPal donate link. I don't promote it, but you some unbelievably do. I mean, one of you, I don't have her permission to say her name, but I mean, Olga, you bought Laura's microphone. I mean, that's how this works. And peoplespunditdailies.com, the subscriptions to that drives it. So we did already make moves to expand. I mean, I just want cooler things on the show. It's going to be like legit. And I want like interactive graphics. I want you guys to see the graphics interactive the way I see them on my end. And some things, you just need better stuff to do that. And because you guys have been so supportive, we've been able to move on it so quickly. Do not forget to subscribe if you have not subscribed to the show. If you like the show, first-time watchers, and you have not subscribed, or you have watched it before and you still have not subscribed, please do so. We may have hit the mark already. I'm running like a candidate 10 points behind. I want those subscriptions, all right, to YouTube, because that's the only way Robert and I can devise our master plan anyway. I want it as transparent as possible. So that's one of the ways we want to do it. All right. And of course, like the page, People's Funded Daily, right? Don't forget to do that. And the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD. ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. My voice is almost out, folks. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We absolutely love you. We'll see you back on Monday. Be safe. Enjoy the weekend. And don't forget your questions for Laura on Monday. All the best, folks.
you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker,